My family lives here. You guys need to leave. Amidst the in-laws directing the movers, Kevin pointed at us and loudly declared, his face twisted with malice. I couldn't help but show my disgust. But Madison, standing beside me, seemed different, asking Kevin with a shaken voice, Dad, don't you know? With those words, Kevin looked puzzled. Madison's frantic demeanor not only caught Kevin off guard, but also made mother-in-law Emily and father-in-law David stop in their tracks to look at us. But Hannah, uninterested as ever, continued giving orders to the movers. Amidst this bewildering scene with the in-laws, I decided to reveal a certain truth. My name is Aria, a 46-year-old remote worker. I have a husband and daughter and live a decent life. I met Kevin, my husband, back when I was still working in an office. We hit it off at a company party that was popular at the time, and exchanged contact details, eventually starting to date. After several dates, Kevin proposed to me 3 years into our relationship. With my often sick mom in mind, I wanted to marry soon to give her peace of mind, so I accepted Kevin's proposal. Sometime after our marriage, I found out I was pregnant. Kevin was genuinely overjoyed, eagerly looking forward to seeing our child. When our daughter Madison was born, Kevin actively took part in parenting, and I was living happily. But like anyone, I had my share of worries, mainly about my mom. My sickly mom was thrilled to see her granddaughter, visiting us frequently despite her near-bedridden state. Initially, she visited often, but as Madison entered middle school, Mom's health visibly worsened. After being married for a while, I left my job to switch to remote work, ready to care for my mom whenever needed. The shift allowed me to fully care for Mom, who started to frequently be in and out of the hospital as Madison graduated middle school. Mom was always so happy when my daughter and I visited her. I hoped these good deeds would accumulate, allowing her to recover enough to go out again. But around this time, Kevin's behavior began to change. Initially, he willingly let me care for Mom, but recently, he started getting grumpy, complaining that I wasn't taking care of him. Going to see your mom again? Huh. You don't care for me, tired from work, but you dote on your sickly mom. Man, I wish I were sick too. No matter how Madison and I tried to cheer him up, Kevin stubbornly refused. Torn between worrying about Mom and Kevin, Madison stepped in to help with Kevin. Mom, I'll take care of Dad. You go see Grandma quickly, she said, smiling reassuringly. I always end up relying on Madison's words. One day, amidst this routine, I received a call from my sister-in-law, Hannah. You've been neglecting your brother lately, she accused as soon as I answered. Startled, I glanced at my phone screen, but it definitely showed Hannah's name. Confused by the baseless accusation, all I could do was deny it. Long time no speak, Hannah. What's this all about? I'm not neglecting Kevin at all. Unaware of how things had gotten to this point, Hannah pressed on. Don't play dumb. I've heard it from my brother. You've been focusing on your mom recently, neglecting your household. Can you still say you're a proud wife? Indeed, I had been spending more time caring for my increasingly ill mom, but I never expected Kevin to complain about it to Hannah. But it's not like I've been neglecting our home. Madison helps with chores after school, and I balance work and caring for Mom with household duties. True, Kevin's complaints seemed to have increased recently, but they were about trivial things like wanting a fancy steak or disliking the scent of the laundry detergent, things beyond our control and hard to improve. I'm certainly not slacking off with the housework. Before I could explain in detail to Hannah, she dropped a bombshell. Unfortunately, this has reached Mom and the others. They might come to scold you soon. Leaving me with these unreasonable words, Hannah abruptly ended the call. Stunned and speechless, Madison approached me. Mom, I'm home. What happened? You look so shocked. Snapping back to reality, I shared the recent events with Madison, who had just returned from school. Madison, like me, was dumbfounded, opening her mouth in disbelief before shaking her head and sighing. Hey, Mom, there's something I've been thinking about for a while. Can I talk to you? Suddenly serious, Madison spoke, and I nodded anxiously. As I listened to her, I felt a sense of patheticness. During this time, with Kevin's nonsensical complaints and harassing calls from Hannah ongoing, the in-laws finally took action. One day, after visiting Mom, I returned home to find Emily cooking in the kitchen. Entering the living room, I stood frozen, gaping at Emily, my belongings still in hand. Noticing me, Emily frowned and approached briskly. Oh, just got back. How is Mom? Well, never mind. Sit down here. Annoyed, Emily passed by, leaving me no choice but to follow, still grasping the situation. Sitting on our living room sofa, I endured a lengthy lecture from Emily. It started with accusations of my poor attitude towards Kevin, moving to neglecting housework and letting my husband do chores, criticizing me thoroughly. However, realizing some inconsistencies, I interrupted to correct her. Emily, there are some things I need to correct. I never made Kevin do the housework. In fact, he doesn't help at all. Embarrassingly, it's Madison who assists me. Hearing this, Emily stood up abruptly, pointing and shouting at me. You think I'd believe such lies? You're suggesting my son is lying. How shameless! Enough of this! Fuming, Emily left the house like a storm, leaving the stove on. I rushed to turn it off and couldn't follow her. That day, Kevin was unusually cheerful, eerily generous. He kept interrupting me every time I tried to bring up Emily's visit. But even Madison found it odd, so we decided to quietly observe, not to upset Kevin. For a few days, Kevin remained in good spirits. Thanks to this, I could care for my mom without worry. But despite my care, Mom quietly passed away. Madison and I, grieving, managed to finish the funeral and decided to clean up Mom's house. I wanted Kevin's help, but mentioning it turned him sour for the first time in a while. Madison and I ended up cleaning alone, surrounded by memories of Mom, each item bringing back memories, hindering our progress. Reluctantly, I contacted Kevin, and we stayed at Mom's house that night. Kevin seemed to be in a really good mood. Take your time. It's a good opportunity, Kevin said. But due to Madison's school and my work, we couldn't stay long. We planned to return home the next day and decided to rest for the night. The next day, having managed to sort through most of the stuff, we decided to head back home. As we neared our house, I noticed a large truck parked outside. Wondering what it was, we saw it was a moving truck, and Kevin and Emily were directing the unloading. What's going on? I asked, rushing over with Madison. Kevin stepped forward, puffing out his chest. You're back already. It's too late for that now. What? I was stunned, watching our belongings being moved into the house, while Kevin, arms crossed and smug, continued. My family is moving in. You guys need to leave. As the in-laws directed the movers, Kevin pointed at us and loudly declared. His face twisted with malice, and I couldn't help but show my disgust. However, Madison, standing beside me, seemed different and asked Kevin, puzzled. Dad, don't you know? His expression changed to shock. Madison's frantic demeanor not only caught Kevin off guard, but also made Emily and David stop and look at us. However, Hannah continued giving orders to the movers, seemingly uninterested. Amidst this bewildering scene with the in-laws, I decided to reveal a certain truth. Forgot? This house is mine. The in-laws were shocked, and Kevin suddenly turned pale and panicky. Even Hannah stopped directing the movers and confronted me. What are you talking about? You couldn't possibly afford such a fancy house. I proudly replied. Thank you for the compliment. This house belongs to my family. My dad built it. That's impossible. This house looks too new and beautiful. I appreciate it, Emily. My mom renovated it when we got married. Kevin should know about this. I didn't know why they had forgotten, but the house was in my name, and the renovation costs were covered by Mom. She willingly moved out to an apartment so that we could live here long term. Kevin and I thanked her and even discussed living together. Realizing his plan had fallen apart, forgetful Kevin seemed to understand that his scheme had failed. And you know, I started to speak, but Madison interrupted. She began to share information from the recent inheritance sorting. Grandma left a lot of inheritance for Mom and me. Unfortunately, it's not money. It's land and high-rise apartments. Things that can't be easily converted into cash. Upon hearing this, Kevin's eyes lit up, and he turned to the in-laws while Hannah triumphantly fist-pumped. I wondered how they could be so happy, hearing Madison's words, but Kevin quickly turned to me, shouting, Wait a minute. I didn't know Mom had so much wealth. You didn't say anything about this when we got married. Hearing Kevin's outcry, the in-laws started voicing their selfish complaints. What's this? Isn't that like marriage fraud? That's so sleazy. You deliberately kept quiet about the inheritance to keep it from Kevin, didn't you? Such a greedy woman. And the way you spoke earlier, it sounded like only you two are getting the inheritance. David, realizing the crucial point, looked at us for confirmation. I nodded firmly and explained. Yes, the inheritance is just for me and Madison. Kevin gets nothing. We found the will while sorting through the belongings yesterday. Hearing this, the in-laws turned red with rage, especially Emily, who was the most furious. This is unacceptable. If that's the case, we're getting a divorce. I'm going to take every penny of your divorce settlement. Emily, stopping her feet and raising her voice, received an immediate acceptance from me. That sounds good. I agree. As soon as I consented, Emily turned and ran off, presumably to the nearby office to get divorce papers. I watched her rush off without trying to stop her. Kevin, noticing Emily's departure, asked me bitterly, What are you planning to do now? What do you mean? Are you talking about the divorce or where you're going to live? Both. Kevin responded with almost a snarl, but I looked up at the house, feigning disinterest. What if I told you I've already put this house up for sale? What? Now it was Kevin's turn to be stunned. He exchanged glances with David, then looked back at me, confused. It was expected. They wouldn't have thought that I'd sell the house while spending another night at Mom's. Addressing the bewildered Kevin, I spoke up confidently. I've been thinking about it for a while. Every time I see your terrible attitude, I wonder why I'm still married to you. I've been putting up with it for Madison's sake, but she's also fed up with you. Delivering this shocking truth to Kevin, I saw him turn pale and look at Madison. She met his gaze firmly and spoke her mind. Dad, you always said you were the head of this house. Neglected and pitied, tired from work and ignored. But don't you think the reason you're treated like that is because of your own faults? Why don't you realize you're the one neglecting and ignoring us? Madison's sharp words silenced Kevin, who could do nothing but stay quiet. I thought if he just signed the divorce papers in his downtrodden state, that would be enough. But then Hannah revealed something astonishing. If I knew it would come to this, I wouldn't have applied for the renovation. We all turned to Hannah in surprise. I was shocked not only by Hannah's sudden confession, but also that David and Kevin didn't know about it. What are you doing without permission? David shouted at Hannah, who nonchalantly began to make excuses. I wanted to live in my dream room, so when we were taking over this house, I thought, why not renovate it? But you're selling this house, right? Oh, but if you're selling it, wouldn't it be better if it's renovated? Hannah's smug face made me and Madison sigh. As for Kevin and David, they were too appalled by Hannah's recklessness. Kevin, unable to contain his anger any longer, began shouting at her.
Listen, sister, whether it's sold or becomes ours, you should have told us beforehand. We were planning to move in. Where are we supposed to live during the renovation?
Despite feeling a bit off about his preface, Kevin's point was valid, and even Hannah seemed to realize it. Oh, really? As Kevin was about to yell at Hannah again, we saw someone running towards us from afar. It was Emily, seemingly with the divorce papers.
I got them, the divorce papers. Now sign them right here.
Emily, out of breath and unaware of the commotion among the in-laws, pushed the papers towards me. I took the papers from Emily and thrust them at Kevin. You start writing. You've always made fun of me, and you agree with the divorce, right?
No way.
Kevin's instant refusal was probably because he knew about Mom's inheritance. But I couldn't bear Kevin's actions and the in-laws' nonsensical behavior any longer. I provoked Kevin, hoping to get him to fill out the papers on the spot. Changing your mind so suddenly? That's right. You've been in a good mood recently because you plan to take over my house. Too bad. Even without Mom's inheritance, I have no intention of giving you this house, and it's already up for sale. Either way, you're going to be homeless, right? Kevin looked at the divorce papers with a frustrated face. Trying to hold back from filling them out in anger, I knew exactly how to push his buttons. It might be humiliating for you, but if you sign these papers, it might ease some of my frustration. Thinking Kevin would act as I expected if I asserted dominance, I spoke, filled with my true feelings, and sure enough, Kevin, red with anger, snatched the papers from me and began filling them out on the spot.
If you say so, I'll give you your divorce.
Kevin's impulsive action was a relief to me internally. I thought Kevin might come to his senses, but he remained simple-minded. After receiving the half-completed divorce application from him, I filled in my part, ensuring no further unexpected events would occur. I handed the completed application to Madison and turned back to the in-laws. Now, all that's left is to submit this to the city hall, so take everything you brought into this house and go.
Wait a minute, are you serious? You said you'd feel better if Kevin signed the divorce papers.
Indeed, I did say that, but I never agreed to the move-in.
What about the renovation? Renovation? What are you talking about?
Emily was surprised to hear about the renovation plan revealed in her absence, but after being briefed by David, she confronted Hannah. A brawl ensued, and with David and Kevin preoccupied, I tried to leave with Madison. However, Kevin and Hannah, determined not to let us go, were stopped by the moving crew, who had had enough. Amid the commotion, we heard police sirens. Shielded by the movers, I noticed neighbors had gathered, likely alarmed by the noise, and someone had called the police. The sight of the approaching patrol car with its flashing lights was a relief, but that was short-lived, as the in-laws, now all together, turned on Madison and me. Thankfully, the police intervened, just in time to prevent any harm. Despite the police's attempt to calm the situation, the in-laws continued their uproar, leading the officers to call for backup and place us in the patrol car for safety. Seeing us in the car, Hannah mistakenly thought we were being arrested and tried to throw belongings into the house, only to be stopped by the police. Finally, with additional officers arriving, the commotion ceased. As the in-laws began to calm down, the police asked us to come to the station for questioning, igniting another uproar. Kevin or Hannah, or perhaps both, ended up assaulting an officer, resulting in their immediate arrest for obstructing official duties. After being advised by the police, the rest of the in-laws also headed to the station. Meanwhile, Madison and I underwent a brief questioning in the patrol car. Eventually, Kevin and I officially divorced. Although he initially resisted despite having signed the divorce papers, leading to delays, we managed to finalize the divorce with the help of lawyers. Soon after, we found a buyer for the house, and I was able to secure the sale proceeds. Though Hannah had strongly suggested renovations, they were unnecessary, as the house had already been renovated when Mom passed it to me, leading to a quick sale. Since then, the in-laws were acquitted, but obviously they couldn't return to the inherited house. Having sold their own home in anticipation of moving into mine, they found themselves without a place to live. Moreover, the uproar caused them to be looked down upon by their community, making their situation even more difficult. It was inevitable, given the scale of the disturbance. My filing for a bond in the divorce trial has further cornered the in-laws. Kevin's workplace became aware of the commotion, and after receiving a pay cut, he voluntarily resigned. Now, while working at his current job, he is paying the bond for our divorce trial, and although for a short period, child support for Madison. Naturally, balancing income and expenses has become difficult, and he seems to be managing the payments by juggling multiple jobs. Hannah, initially continuing as a beauty consultant, was eventually fired due to customer rumors about the incident reaching upper management. Living a lavish lifestyle, she quickly ran out of money, and like Kevin, is working multiple jobs to cover the bond payment. The in-laws themselves seem to have had further troubles post-incident, leading to a divorce and separate living arrangements. Emily was fired from her part-time job due to neighborhood gossip, and David, who planned to live freely off his retirement fund, now has to find work to cover the bond payment to me. While each of them faces their own challenges, I see it as their retribution for their actions towards Madison and me. I hope they will reflect on their behavior. Meanwhile, Madison and I have moved into a new home. With her already transferred to a different school, there's no worry about the in-laws causing trouble there. Continuing my remote work, I look forward to spending peaceful times with Madison. The relief of being freed from that situation brings a smile to my face, and I plan to live happily with Madison.
My husband's estate of $80 million as well as this house will be passed down to me. We don't have any children, so everything is mine. My sister-in-law speaks with such triumph, and my name is Emma, a 45-year-old part-time worker. My husband and I have two sons, a senior and a sophomore in high school. My eldest son is taking the college entrance exam this year. He aspires to be a lawyer and has been studying diligently. He has wanted to be a lawyer since he was a small child, possibly influenced by my older brother Oliver. My brother is a lawyer, and about a few years ago, he established a law firm and even had a few lawyers. My eldest son, who had grown up watching my brother do this, loved to study and always got good grades, even in elementary school. When my brother had heard that my eldest son wanted to be a lawyer, he was overjoyed and encouraged him. My eldest son told my brother whenever they meet, "I will be a lawyer like you, uncle." My brother chuckled as he responded, "Hurry up and become a lawyer and follow in my footsteps." When my brother, who was married but had no children, came to visit us, he gladly plays with my sons and spoils them. My brother's wife was 10 years younger than him. She was an eccentric, or rather a difficult woman who never visited our house, so we never really spoke to her. My brother and I lost our parents when we were young. So when I was about to get married, my brother took place as a parent, and after I married, he married as well. My husband and I were relieved when we knew that my brother was planning to marry a young woman, but when we actually met his fiancée, I was surprised at how grumpy she looked. We were expecting a happy faces because she was about to marry my brother, but she looked at us with a sulky look. I said, "You two are great together," in front of my brother and his fiancée, but I told my true feelings when I returned home and was alone with my husband. I was curious as to why she appeared so unhappy after the marriage was finalized. My husband seemed to agree with me and responded concernedly. She wasn't a particularly pleasant bride. It can't be helped what we care. My brother married his 10-year younger fiancée. Shortly before they got married, my brother bought a house, so my husband and I took our children and visited them to celebrate. The house was magnificent and astonished me, as expected of my brother because he runs a law firm. But we did not see my sister-in-law, so my husband jokingly said to my brother, "Has your wife already left you?" My husband was obviously joking, but seeing my brother's stern expression, my husband and I became nervous. According to my brother, whenever there is something, sister-in-law returns to her parents' house. Today was their mother's birthday, so she is staying over to celebrate. My husband's shoulders slumped, thinking he had said a bad joke. Suddenly, my brother asks us with a straight face, "If I ever can't have children, can I adopt one of your children?" I thought my brother was joking, saying something like that, but he looked serious. I couldn't answer his unexpected suggestion, but my husband laughed and replied, "We don't know what the future holds, so let's discuss it when it happens, okay? If you are okay with our children, you are free to adopt whichever you want." My husband didn't seem to take it seriously and dismissed it, but I was concerned about the adoption, and more importantly, that my brother and his wife were not getting along. It wasn't my place to intervene because it was their problem, but I was concerned. After that, when we visit my brother's house, or he come over to our house, it was always just him. My sister-in-law never showed up. My brother also never mentioned her, so I avoided asking him about her. They had been married for more than 10 years, and I have almost been forgotten about her existence. This year, my eldest son was accepted into his dream law school. My brother brought up about adoption again, when he came to our house to celebrate my son. Like I said before, "Would you allow me to adopt either of your kids?" he asked. My brother and his wife were unable to have children, and so he asked the question once more. They had just gotten married the last time we discussed it, so there was no sense of hurry, but this time my brother seemed serious. Nonetheless, my husband appeared to take it lightly and responded quickly. "Would you prefer to have our eldest son since he aspires to be a lawyer?" My husband said it so simply, but I was cautious, because it is a major life-changing decision for our sons. Though they were going to be adopted, they would be with my brother. It is their uncle, so my sons would be fine, but I was worried about my sister-in-law. I was concerned that she would mistreat my son, who were not her biological child, so I asked my brother, "Is your wife in favor of adopting?" My brother replied with a sour smile, "Don't worry about her. We've already discussed it." I was relieved to hear that they had already discussed it, but I couldn't make up my mind right away, so I decided to discuss it with my two sons and then make a decision. They are already in high school, so I wanted them to make their own decisions. We didn't go any further that day, but a few days later, I got a call from my brother's lawyer's office. They said he had collapsed. I rushed into the hospital. I found the staff from the law firm waiting for him with worried expressions. My brother had a stroke at work and was rendered unconscious. After I arrived, the law firm staff left. They also said that they couldn't reach my sister-in-law. I called the landline, but she didn't answer, and I didn't have her cell phone number. My husband and my second son later arrived, but I really couldn't reach my sister-in-law. My second son eventually discovered a smartphone among my brother's belongings. We unlocked it and began looking up for her number. She answered angrily when I called using that phone. "I told you not to call again. I will sue you." I began to speak while she was yelling in a terrible tone. "It's Emma, Oliver's sister. My brother passed out and was taken to the hospital." Then she started talking gently when she realized it's me on the phone. "I'm so sorry, I thought it was Oliver. You said he collapsed?" I told her about my brother's condition and which hospital he was taken to, but she responded happily, "I can't go to the hospital right now because I have things to do, but please notify me as soon as you hear anything." She then hung up the phone. I wondered if she had more important things to do now, even her husband is sick. Now that we know my sister-in-law cannot be any help, we decided to take care of my brother. Since my eldest son had finished his university entrance exams, and he was relaxing at home most of the time, he visited my brother every day on my behalf. My brother never regained consciousness and remained in critical condition, but my sister-in-law never called nor visited the hospital. About a week after my brother was hospitalized, I called my sister-in-law again. She answered the phone quickly and gleefully. "What's the matter? Did he die?" I wanted to yell at her for being so rude, but I responded quietly, "He is still alive. Why don't you visit the hospital?" She retorted as if she irritates me while I hold back my rage. "I'm not a doctor, nor am I a spiritual healer. There's nothing I can do for his recovery." I became even more enraged by her demeanor, so I hung up the phone. I began to suspect that my brother wanted to adopt one of my sons because he had given up on having children with his wife. I think they weren't getting along. When my brother's marriage was finalized, I asked him how they'd meet, and he said they met through a marriage counseling agency. Maybe my sister-in-law married him because he was a lawyer and she wanted to have a good life. This thought enraged me even more, but when I mentioned it to my husband, he said something even more crueler. If Oliver dies in this situation, his wife will inherit the entire estate, since they don't have any children. So my brother came to celebrate my eldest son the other day and spoke to us about adoption. Maybe it was because he was thinking about his inheritance. I wish I could have decided at that time, but there was nothing I could do. After my brother left that day, I casually mentioned it to my two sons, and my second son told me that he would be happy to be adopted. Unlike my eldest son, my second son has no goals at the moment. He appears to believe that if he is adopted by Oliver, he will have an easy life. I expected the first son, who looks up to his brother, to want to be adopted as well, but the answer surprised me. I don't want to be adopted, because as the eldest son, I will take care of you, Mom and Dad. I was overjoyed, but I also knew that my eldest son, who aspired to be a lawyer, was the right one to be adopted by. I was disappointed that I can't complete the adoption process on behalf of my unconscious brother. I do not want my brother's inheritance, but I also do not want to give even a penny of his property to my sister-in-law, who appears to be awaiting his death. I could only hope for my brother's recovery, but he never recovered. My brother passed away a few days later, and I had no choice but to contact my sister-in-law. My brother recently passed away. Can we do a funeral? My sister-in-law, who had been waiting the news of my brother's death, responded cheerfully. Everything is up to you. Please do not appoint me as a pallbearer. I don't want to deal with any formalities. When I was about to lose it, she quickly hung up the phone. After all, my husband and I planned the funeral. Staffs from the law firm helped us in a variety of ways. My husband was also concerned about the firm's future, but my brother had taken care of that. Though my brother was the firm's representative lawyer, he delegated management to someone he trusted, so the law firm as a corporation will continue to operate without a problem. Many people came to my brother's funeral, and so many wreaths were brought that they couldn't fit it in the hall. Then I realized how wonderful my brother was once again. My son also assisted at the funeral, but when my second son saw the presidents of major corporations, politicians, and others had also attended, he was really frustrated. I knew I should have been adopted. I had no idea how amazing he was. My husband and I both felt we could kind of understand his sorrow. I was the pallbearer, but no one asked why my sister-in-law wasn't there, and no one mentioned it. I wondered if we were the only ones who knew my brother had married. My brother and his wife did not have a wedding. Instead, they only went on their honeymoon, so even the relatives may have missed it. If this was going to happen, I almost wish they had never married. No need of a wife who does not attend of her husband's funeral, and I regret not allowing him to adopt my second son sooner, because I believe she would take all of my brother's estates. With the help of the law firm staffs, my brother's funeral was completed. I invited everyone to my brother's house for a meal and to thank them. My brother will be able to rest in peace because of all of you. We were all very sad. That's when my sister-in-law appeared, wearing a flashy pink coat. I addressed her as if she had planned to arrive just as the funeral wrapped up. After all this time, why did you come here? With a big smile on her face, she speaks loud so that everyone could hear. My husband's estate of $80 million, as well as this house, will be passed down to me, his wife. We don't have any children, so everything is mine. For some reason, when she said it triumphantly, my brother's subordinates burst out laughing. We looked at them confused, unsure why they were laughing. My sister-in-law glared and yelled at them. What exactly are you laughing about? You're so impolite. While smirking, one of the lawyers responded, We know that you're officially divorced. We all knew the result of your divorce settlement the day before he collapsed. When I first heard this fact, I exclaimed, What? You were divorced? I looked over my sister-in-law's face and saw her staring at them, who had just said the truth with the most terrifying expression ever. When she clenched her teeth, the other lawyer started talking. I also heard that you were charged alimony in conjunction with your divorce. Because your affair caused a divorce, it is inevitable. My sister-in-law yelled, glaring at the lawyer who said it. I'm not required to pay alimony, am I? I no longer have anyone to pay. She spoke mockingly, but there was no way she could compete with a legal expert, and she was quickly retorted. The right to alimony will also be inherited, so you will have to pay it to Emma. She's the inheritor. Then I realized for the first time that I was my brother's sole inheritor. If their divorcement was finalized and our parents are gone, so I'm all that's left. She seemed to realize this too, and looked at me with a horrified expression, causing me to step back. But she seems unconvinced and began yelling once more. Don't I get half of the estate now that divorcement is settled? A dismayed-looking lawyer responds. Didn't Oliver give you money when the divorce was finalized? I have a receipt certificate. He also purchased the house before the marriage, so it is not the subject to property division. I enjoyed watching her being lectured by the lawyers regardless of what she said. She seemed to recall something and shouted while laughing a little. "There's the life insurance, I should still be the beneficiary." She impressed me with her attitude in a situation where everyone around appeared to be her enemy. She said she changed the beneficiary of Oliver's life insurance to herself. However, the lawyer was also quick to deny about the life insurance. Oliver is a firm man, so I think he changed it when the divorce was finalized. I searched my brother's valuables and discovered the life insurance policy. When my sister-in-law saw this, she took the life insurance policy from me and looked impatiently at the beneficiary, but dropped her shoulders in disappointment. When she returned the certificate to me, I noticed that the beneficiary was me. My sister-in-law, realizing she was getting nowhere, yelled out her true feelings without thinking. "I married a lawyer because I thought he is wealthy, but I've only got a little money. In addition, I have to pay alimony. This is a huge mistake." With a grimace, the lawyer replied to her. Oliver said same thing. He said he shouldn't have come for the advice of a marriage counselor. He bemoaned the fact that he had made a huge mistake. My brother had never said anything like that to me, but he had always been truthful with his coworkers and subordinates. Unable to refute anything, my sister-in-law rolled her back and left my brother's house. Later on, she will have to pay the alimony in installments, but she didn't have a job. She began looking for a job quickly, but she has never worked seriously before and quit immediately. She re-registered to the marriage counseling agency and looked for a wealthy man in order to make quick money. And she found a wealthy man, told him she needed money for marriage, and cheated him out of his money. But the man caught on right away and reported her to the police. She was arrested for marriage fraud, according to the lawyer who works in my brother's law firm. To be honest, no alimony was ever paid to me, and when I went to see the lawyer about it, the story came up. In dismay, the lawyer told me, now that she has been apprehended, alimony payments may be impossible to obtain for the foreseeable future. Alimony is not something I am interested in. I was more interested in seeing her suffer a terrible fate. I believe my brother would agree, so I would like the police to investigate thoroughly her other crimes, etc., and charge her as a felon in court. My family moved into a house that my brother had left behind after unexpectedly inheriting his property. My husband and sons were ecstatic to be able to live in a big house after previously living in an apartment. My eldest son is studying law harder than ever before. He observed his brother's colleagues and subordinates lawyers, arguing with his sister-in-law, which made him yearn to be a lawyer. Though he was never adopted by, I hope he will carry on my brother's legacy and become a great lawyer like him. Only my second son is upset and disappointed that I inherited my brother's entire estate. He claims, "To be honest, I wish I was adopted by uncle so I could have inherited everything." The second son smiled, half-jokingly.
The moment I had been dreading finally arrived. My husband, who has tormented me endlessly, and his ever-critical mother. I can't even count the number of tears I've shed and the times I've been hurt. Despite it all, I've held on, trying my best to fulfill my role as a wife and homemaker. But my husband, he never seemed to care about my struggles. He even decided to move his mother into our home without consulting me.
Is your mom all moved in?
Of course she is, but here's the thing. Yeah, she's settled in. In fact, I just finished moving back to my parents' home.
Wait, what? Your parents' place?
His voice over the phone was tinged with panic. I could tell he hadn't seen this coming. But don't think it ends here. I owe you for all the pain you've caused me. My name is Eleanor, a 44-year-old homemaker. I met Raymond at a party when I was 20, and we instantly clicked. Just 3 months later, he confessed his feelings and we started dating. A year later, as I turned 21, he asked, "Will you marry me?" A year after our marriage, I became pregnant and our first son was born. I thought I would have the fairy tale life I had dreamt of during my school days. But life wasn't that simple.
Hey, is dinner ready yet? Did you make the bed?
That's what Raymond always says when he comes home from work. I sometimes wonder if he thinks of me just as a maid. I'm sorry, I got a bit tied up. I'll get everything ready now.
Seriously? Don't you think about how tired I am after work? I deal with so much stress to provide for our family. And remember, I'm a manager. A manager!
Whenever something doesn't go his way, Raymond starts ranting about being a manager and makes snide remarks. He wasn't like this when we first got married. People often ask if I'm okay with how he behaves. Of course I'm not. It's unbearable. But honestly, I do appreciate that he brings in the money. Thanks to Raymond's good salary, we've never had financial troubles. But imagine if I challenged him wrongly and he retorted, "You're defying me. Fine. I'll stop contributing to the house then." I wouldn't know what to do. So even if he says a bit much sometimes, I try to tolerate it, though I wish I could say it was always easy. But with the way Raymond's been acting lately, even that tolerance is strained. Like the other day, he ranted.
"Why aren't the clothes dry? You didn't even use the dryer, did you? I told you before, I like my clothes feeling cozy. They need to be fluffy from the dryer."
I had a lot on my plate with shopping and chores. I didn't get to the dryer.
"That's not the point. I work hard every day, but what about you? Aren't you a homemaker? Shouldn't you have time for at least this?"
Raymond never does household chores. He believes that's the wife's job. Just because I'm a homemaker doesn't mean I always have free time. I wish he'd help out a little. It was the same time when our child was born.
"I'm busy with work. I'm tired."
Always some excuse. So I've done all the household and childcare duties by myself. But there's another source of stress. My mother-in-law.
"Eleanor, did you clean this properly? And what are you planning for dinner tonight? Surely not some takeaway."
Whenever my mother-in-law visits, she's always like this. She constantly looks for my mistakes and never hesitates to criticize. Both mother and son act similarly. Like they say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And today she started again.
"Eleanor, how many times have I told you? Clean the house every day to make it comfortable for my son. Why don't you? Are you ignoring my advice on purpose? This is why I was against my son marrying someone like you. You can't even manage the house properly. Just looking at you infuriates me."
Constant criticism from Raymond and my mother-in-law, and I endure it all with a smile. But there's one thing I just can't overlook. Mother-in-law's gambling habit. Whenever she has the chance, she's playing poker, slot machines, roulette, or craps. She just loves to gamble. And she spends all her money in the blink of an eye. Worse still, she laughs about it. And Raymond just laughs along with her. Hold on a second. Whose money do you think you're using? The money mother-in-law spends on gambling comes from our household savings. I've brought this up to Raymond multiple times, but
"I'm just as upset about it. Hey, could you tell Mom? I mean, I could tell her, but if I do, I think she'd be really shocked. Plus, I'm so busy with work. I don't think I can discuss it calmly."
He always comes up with these excuses and never acts. So, I decide to convey Raymond's message to mother-in-law for him.
"Why can't a mother use the money her son earns? He told me I can use as much as I want."
She retorted. Thinking that Raymond would back me up, I say, "Raymond feels the same way. Could you please stop using our household savings without asking? Right, honey?" But Raymond interjects.
"What are you talking about? The household savings is for all three of us. Excluding only Mom is wrong. Sorry, Mom. Don't listen to her. She's lying. You can use the money as you always have."
This is how Raymond always changes his story depending on who he's talking to. Moreover, he started blaming me for mother-in-law's gambling habits, saying they worsened after we got married 3 months ago. That's just not true. Even before our marriage, mother-in-law was gambling frequently. Whenever I went shopping, I'd see her coming out of the local poker club. But when I bring this up to Raymond, he accuses me of lying and then ignores the issue. He'll never see his mother's true colors.
The snide remarks keep coming, and I'm getting fed up.
Oh, look at the time. I should get going.
Wait, Mom, you didn't forget about our plan, right? How are the preparations?
Yes, they're well underway.
What plan? What are these two up to? I'm taken aback by Raymond's sudden question and try to figure out their scheme. With that, mother-in-law, humming a tune, leaves in high spirits. At last, she's gone. I think to myself. I look over, and Raymond is grinning from ear to ear, waving until his mother's out of sight. A week later, I finally understood the meaning behind Raymond's words about preparations. Have a good day. Slam. As usual, Raymond leaves for work without responding to my farewell. While most couples would greet each other with smiles, that warmth is long gone between us. I gaze out the window and see a neighboring family, looking so happy as they walk by. I remember the days when my son and I used to go for walks just like that. Lost in my thoughts in the morning, the doorbell rings. Yes, who is it? Oh, it's you, mother-in-law.
Wait, where's Raymond?
I wasn't expecting her to show up today, especially not this early in the morning. Oh, something came up at his work, so he had to go in unexpectedly.
I see.
Why on earth is she here? She's not expecting to have breakfast with me, is she? No way she would think of doing that. Or would she? A flurry of thoughts about mother-in-law raced through my mind. Then she says,
Why are you standing there looking so blank? Get things ready.
Ready for what?
I haven't eaten anything since this morning. I'm hungry, so make me breakfast. And make sure this doesn't happen again.
What does she mean by from now on? The words get ready that Raymond mentioned earlier and mother-in-law's from now on phrase make me uneasy. For some reason, I had a terrible feeling about this. Feeling anxious about their comments, mother-in-law pressures me to make breakfast. I apologize and start preparing the meal. Meanwhile, mother-in-law observes me, not even blinking. More like monitoring than observing, maybe. It's hard to do. Under her piercing gaze, I silently and earnestly prepare the breakfast. Suddenly, mother-in-law says,
It's pitiful to think my son eats this poorly presented food every day. It looks terrible and probably tastes just as bad. I'd love to know how you manage to cook so poorly.
She ridicules me, mockingly laughing and complaining. Why do I have to hear this all first thing in the morning? What was supposed to be a pleasant morning felt as if it had turned into a downpour. Sorry for the wait.
It took you long enough. How much time do you need for a meal like this? Maybe you should attend a cooking class. Then you might be able to cook something decent. Though even then, it'd be like getting a D instead of an F.
Having a meal alone with my mother-in-law for the first time? Seeing her stern face while eating, I lost my appetite, and the meal I put so much effort into tasted bland. Suddenly, my mother-in-law set down her fork, stating,
I don't even feel like eating this. Clear it away.
I'm sorry. I just can't take this anymore. I wish she'd leave sooner. But little did I know my wish would be shattered in no time. Ring, ring. Excuse me for a moment.
Hey, Mom's there, right? Let me talk to her.
Handing the phone to my mother-in-law after Raymond's request, she exclaimed,
You told me we discussed that matter, making me come over so early? Now you say you're at work. What's going on?
Sorry, something came up. I'll be back before noon. Just relax till then.
Hurry up. Being with her is just stressful.
She ended the call with Raymond and returned the phone to me with a slight throw. Trying to ask what Raymond had said, she just glared and told me he'd be back before noon. 3 hours later, Raymond returned home and immediately asked her, "Sorry, Mom. So, are you ready?"
Yes, just need to pack my things.
Pack? What? Before I could process, Raymond dropped a bombshell.
"From now on, Mom will live here too."
What? It was a shock. I always thought it would be just the two of us living here, but now my mother-in-law will be moving in too. The mere thought of my mother-in-law coming here terrifies me. Living a life constantly getting snide remarks from Raymond and my mother-in-law every day. I just can't bear the thought of it.
"Mom, I'll help you move on my next day off."
That would be helpful, but don't bring her along. We don't need someone useless.
"Don't worry, it'll just be me."
This shocking twist left my mind blank, unable to process anything. That evening, Raymond and his mom went out for dinner. Alone, I pondered our future. How would I coexist with the two of them? Was I just supposed to endure everything? Or was there another way? The same thoughts kept replaying, but no answers came. Lost in my despair, I felt tears spilling when suddenly, ring ring, a phone call. Wiping away my tears, I answered, and the voice on the other end was, "Oh," a call from the most unexpected person. The familiar voice echoed in my ear when I picked up the phone.
"Mom, it's been a while."
"Eric, it has indeed. Have you been well?"
"Yeah, I'm good. Granddad and Granny are also doing well. We're all getting along."
It was my son Eric on the other end. After graduating from college, Eric took a job at a company near our family home. Because his work was close, he had chosen to live with his grandparents, away from us.
"When will you come to visit? It's been years since you last did. The two of them really want to see you."
"I'm sorry. I've been so busy and just couldn't make it to the family home."
"Busy with what? Isn't it because of Dad and Grandmother?"
He hit the nail on the head. The reason I couldn't visit was indeed because of those two. Raymond didn't like the idea of me visiting my parents. As a homemaker, Raymond only sees me as a mere housekeeper. He has this ridiculous notion that I should always be taking care of the home. And his mother-in-law shared the same view. She too only saw me as a convenient housekeeper, always expecting me to tend to the house. So I felt trapped, unable to leave, and just living within the confines of our home. It felt like I was a bird caged up. Eric knew this. He once visited this house and remembered the words Raymond and mother-in-law had hurled at me.
"Aren't you a homemaker? Then you need to do your household duties properly."
A housekeeper who can't even do chores is useless anywhere. Be grateful you're even needed here by us."
It was then that Eric first realized the treatment I was getting from the two of them.
"I thought as much."
"I'm sorry for making you worry."
"Listen, Mom, I have an idea."
Then Eric suggested something unexpected. It was something I hadn't ever considered. "Really? Are you serious?"
"Of course, it's to help you, Mom."
While it might seem obvious, Eric's words became the lifeline I needed for my hellish life. From the next day, while Raymond was at work, I started implementing what Eric had told me to do. Being cautious not to let Raymond notice, and always vigilant for the often unexpectedly appearing mother-in-law. There were a few close calls.
"Hey, have you been up to something lately?"
"Why do you ask?"
"Mom mentioned it. She said you've been acting differently. You're not cheating on me, are you?"
Last time, I was saved by Raymond's ridiculous misunderstanding. But I can't underestimate my mother-in-law. She's sharp. I need to be more careful and not let my guard down around her. Still, it's clear that Raymond doesn't really care about me. Well, that's fine. It actually makes things easier for me.
In fact, it's a relief. I can't wait to see how they'll react to what comes next. Ring, ring. Mom, how far along are you with the preparations? I've got everything ready and I've made a lot of progress. Now we just wait for the day. Speaking of which, do you know when Grandmother is moving in? She's moving in the day after tomorrow. I overheard them talking about it when they were in a good mood. I have to make sure they pay for everything they've done to me. The climax is approaching. The morning my mother-in-law is set to arrive. Don't slack off just because I'm not around. Also, help Mom with the luggage when she gets here, and keep the house clean. Mom said she won't forgive even a speck of dust. I understand. After seeing Raymond off, I start the final preparations. Then the doorbell rings. Good morning, Mom. Eric, I'm sorry, but can you help me? Of course. Let's get this done quickly before Grandmother arrives. With Eric's help, we finalize everything. And 30 minutes later, all right, let's go. I hop into Eric's car and we head to a certain place. Ring, ring. Hello. The moment has arrived. Raymond and mother-in-law have tormented me endlessly. I don't even know how many tears I've shed or how much pain I've endured. Yet I've persisted, trying my best as a homemaker. But Raymond never seemed to care about my struggles. And he decided to move in with his mother without discussing it with me. Is Mom all settled in? Of course she is. But guess what? Yes, she's all settled, and I've just finished moving back to my parents' home. What? Back to your parents? Raymond's panic was evident, even over the phone. But that's not the end of it. He's got a lot coming his way. I delivered the final blow to Raymond. Today's the day we get divorced. The divorce papers, already filled out with your name, are on the table. When you get home, all you need to do is sign and take them to the courthouse. Just to make sure there's no delay, I've arranged for a lawyer to accompany you. The lawyer will also discuss the division of our assets. Raymond, taken aback, blurted out. Wait, what are you talking about? Divorce? Are you kidding me? No matter what you say, it won't change my mind. Oh, by the way, we don't have a single cent in our savings. What? That can't be true. I've been contributing every month. Yes, but your dear mother gambled all that money away. We have nothing left. What? I suggest you and your mother figure things out. Good luck. Right after ending the call with Raymond, his mother showed up at the house, arms laden with bags, enthusiastically ringing the doorbell. I didn't answer. Infuriated, she yelled, Hey, open up! How long are you going to keep me waiting out here? Open the damn door, you wretched woman! Get out here! Her screaming and swearing at the front door attracted the attention of a passer-by. They suspected her of causing trouble and called the police. In just a few minutes, officers arrived and took her away. About 30 minutes later, a distraught Raymond, unable to focus on his work after hearing the news, rushed home, but I was nowhere to be seen. The only thing waiting for him was the divorce paper on the table. The sight left him completely speechless, and he just sat down devastated. 2 hours later, the lawyer arrived and accompanied a despondent Raymond to the courthouse to submit the divorce papers. At last, our divorce was finalized. The next day, after being released from police custody, Raymond's mother came home, only to find her son deeply affected by the shock of the divorce. Although Raymond had planned to live with her, the trauma of the divorce made him take a leave from work, and a month later, he resigned. With no income, he had to sell the new house they had just built. They managed to get by with the money from the sale, but his gambling-addicted mother depleted it all. Rumor has it, they now live like homeless people in a nearby park. After the divorce, I began to live peacefully at my parents' house. The money from the sale of the house came to me as well. With that money, I commented, "This place is lovely."
Yeah, it's a popular resort hotel these days.
I was on vacation with my family. Finally, free from the nightmare, I could live my life on my own terms. That joy is unparalleled.
Hospitalization? You're planning to use that as an excuse to slack off on housework even more? Slack off? I didn't mean to. If you keep shirking your chores, divorce is next. Unfazed, my husband casually spoke these words, not worrying about my upcoming hospital stay. Apparently, he thinks he can intimidate me with the threat of divorce. He believes that if he dangles the possibility of a split, I'll become obedient. What an insult. Just because I'm a housewife doesn't mean I'll let myself be pushed around. I'm definitely going to divorce him. Definitely escape from this hell. I'm Sandy Davis, 28 years old. A year ago, I married Kenny, a colleague from work. We were in different departments, but often interacted, and his advances led to a relationship. After dating smoothly, we finally tied the knot. With our marriage, I resigned from the company and became a full-time housewife. That's because Kenny had said this to me before we got married. Hey Sandy, after we get married, could you become a full-time housewife? Huh? But I don't really hate my current job. My mom was always a stay-at-home mom, and I think it's best for women to protect the home. Thanks to her, my dad could focus on work without stress. Is that so? Are you sure? I mean, I'm not particularly skilled at housework or anything. That's okay. All I want is for you to handle the house without overworking yourself. I'll earn our living out there. Okay, I understand. If you say so, Kenny, I'll try being a housewife. So I quit my job and started a new life as a housewife. Managing unfamiliar chores was challenging, but it was my life with Kenny, whom I loved so much. Plus, I lost my parents a few years ago, and my only family now is my husband. I was determined to cherish this life. However, happiness doesn't last forever. One day, 6 months after our marriage, my husband came home from work in an unusually bad mood. Even when tired, he would usually greet me with "I'm home," but not today. He let out a big sigh and plopped down on the sofa. I cautiously approached him. Kenny, welcome home. You seem tired. Are you okay? Dinner's ready. Would you like to eat? Or maybe you want to take a shower first? Hey, Kenny. Can't you see I'm thinking? Stop bothering me. With wide eyes and a glare in my direction, my husband lashed out. I had never seen him this angry before, and I involuntarily flinched. I'm sorry. Despite my immediate apology, he clicked his tongue loudly enough for me to hear it. In an obnoxious tone, he began to take out his bad mood on me. Must be nice just lazing around the house all day. Wait, Kenny, what are you saying all of a sudden? You're supposedly a housewife, but really you're just lounging around while I'm at work. You're really the worst. Hold on. I'm always doing chores around the house. Shut up. You're nothing but a leech. Yet you have the nerve to talk back to me? He suddenly grabbed a handful of my hair and yanked it upwards. I felt an unspeakable fear at his actions. I quickly raised my voice, "Stop it!" But my plea didn't reach him. For the following hour, I was subjected to a barrage of verbal abuse, called an inept wife and a freeloader. I'm reducing our monthly expenses, you know. As he declared, his treatment of me worsened day by day. Initially, he only reduced our spending money by $100, but now I'm only getting half of what we used to. Our relationship wasn't one between husband and wife anymore. It was more like master and servant. This was only a year into our marriage. You might think it's only been a year, but for me, it was a year of hell. From the day Kenny lost his senses, time seemed to crawl at a painfully slow pace. Every night, I was reprimanded and blamed for every little thing. Even so, the reason I stayed with Kenny as a couple was because I couldn't bring myself to truly dislike him. I kept hoping he would someday return to his old self. One day, something happened. I was cleaning around the house when my cell phone rang. Checking the screen, I saw a name that I hadn't seen in a while. Laurie, a former coworker's. Excited by the unexpected call, I immediately pressed the answer button. Hello, Laurie. Long time no see.
Sandy, it's been a while. Hey, can you chat right now?
Of course.
I'm sorry for being so blunt, but Sandy, are you fighting with your husband?
Arguing? Why do you ask?
I heard through the grapevine. Recently, Kenny has been talking bad about you at work.
What's this about? According to Lori, my husband looks as if he is very dominant at home lately. She can't do anything without me. She's so helpless when it comes to housework. She would be divorced if she wasn't with me. Apparently, he had been bad-mouthing me to our former colleagues and junior staff in his department. Because I used to work at the same company, everyone in his workplace knows me. My former coworkers, familiar with me, seem to have subtly defended me, but it seems that even this did not sit well with Kenny, and he was giving the cold shoulder to the juniors and colleagues who defended me. Because of this, the trust he had built up was crumbling, and the atmosphere in his department was supposedly quite bad. Upon hearing this, Laurie felt concerned and decided to reach out to me. I was at a loss for words after hearing this series of events. Not only did I feel guilty, but I also felt extremely embarrassed that my husband was causing trouble for his coworkers. I'm sorry, Laurie. It seems like Kenny has been causing trouble.
It's okay. I'm in a different department, but you need to do something about this sooner. Kenny will be isolated at work.
I know, but he won't even listen to me at home.
I see. But it would be better to discuss this before things get out of hand. For your sake, and for Kenny's too.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks, Laurie. I'll try to talk to him tonight.
Give it a try, and if anything comes up, I'm always here to listen.
After saying thank you and hanging up the phone, I got back to cleaning. I made up my mind to have a serious talk with Kenny once he got home, and so I waited for his return. Several hours later, my husband came home from work as always. He headed straight for the fridge and grabbed a beer. In the past few months, he hadn't even been saying, "I'm home," nor discussing the events of his day. After finishing his meal, he usually starts lecturing me, so before he could take a sip of beer, I brought up the conversation. Hey, Kenny, have things been going well at work recently? Huh? What's with the sudden question? I'm not so incompetent that you need to worry about me. It's not about work, actually. I heard something today. They said you've been talking behind my back at work? Talking behind your back? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb! I rebuked my husband, who tried to play it off. I confronted him, making it clear to my surprised husband. Hey, what do you want to accomplish? Not just at home, but even at work. You've been bad-mouthing me. What's so fun about creating a negative atmosphere in your department? Huh? What are you saying? Do you realize everyone is having a hard time because of you, Kenny? Why can't you see that? If you want to talk bad about me in front of me, then do as you please, but don't cause trouble for your colleagues too. Right after I said that, a sharp sound echoed in the room. I felt a dull pain on my left cheek, slowly spreading. A few seconds later, I realized my husband had slapped me. Why would you do that? Why? It's because you keep back-talking. Back-talking? I was just worried about you, Kenny. Shut up. There's no reason for you to be ordering me around. Get it? You can live because of me. If you understand that, just keep quiet and take care of the house. He spat out the harsh words with a strong tone. I was unable to articulate a response. I had plenty to say, but my body wouldn't cooperate due to the fear. Afterwards, my husband started drinking his beer as if nothing had happened. He started laughing while watching TV and ordered me to bring him snacks. In the end, no matter how much I worried about him, no matter what I say to him, it's all pointless. No matter what, I can't seem to get my husband to understand. Since then, the way he treated me worsened day by day. Not only my heart, but also my body was in shreds. Then one day, on my way to the grocery store, I was suddenly overcome with extreme nausea. My vision warped and I was assaulted by such severe dizziness that I couldn't even stand. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in a hospital bed. The doctor, upon seeing me awake, kindly explained everything to me. I had collapsed on the street. I was suffering from malnutrition, and the stress had caused me to develop a stomach ulcer. Miss Davis, right now, both your mind and body are completely exhausted. You're in a severe state of overwork. For now, you should be admitted to the hospital for about a week. Hospitalization? But I'm a stay-at-home wife, and the household chores. What are you saying? If you continue like this, you'll wear yourself out. I understand. But then it was already past 7 p.m. I decided to contact my husband to bring me some change of clothes, so I took out my phone. To my surprise, there were tons of messages that had arrived within the last hour.
Where are you now? Get back home, now! You're such a money sucker, and now you're slacking off from your chores?
He must have returned from work to find me gone and gotten furious that cleaning and laundry weren't done. Gathering my courage, I called him. After a few rings, he picked up.
Where the hell have you been? And what have you been doing?
He shouted as soon as he picked up the phone. I took a deep breath and slowly explained the situation to him. That's why the doctor told me that I need to be hospitalized for about a week, so...
Hospitalized? So you're planning to use that as an excuse to slack off even more?
I'm not slacking off,
You've already slacked off on your chores, so the next thing will be divorce.
What?
You'd be in trouble if we got divorced, right? You don't have any relatives, do you? If I leave you, you'll be all alone for sure, won't you?
Even though his wife had been hospitalized, instead of showing me concern, he used the threat of divorce to order me to come home. At that moment, a fury I had never felt before reached its peak. Enough. I've had enough. I will never be happy if I continue to live with this man. Then it's better to. As I gathered my thoughts, my husband caught up in his own power trip, starting to provoke me over the phone.
Hey, are you listening? You'd be in trouble if we divorced, wouldn't you?
Fine.
What? What did you say?
I said fine. Let's get a divorce.
No. What are you talking about? Do you even understand what divorce means?
Of course I do. But in return, you prepared the divorce papers.
As if you have the guts to divorce me. Just remember this.
In his annoyance, my husband hung up without waiting for a reply. The next phone call came later. The caller was my old boss from the job I used to have. Actually, even after I became a housewife, my old boss had been contacting me on several occasions. You see, I used to enjoy getting certifications, and I had several before I got married. I got some during my student days and some after I started working, and they were all beneficial for my job. Thanks to them, I had a wide range of work responsibilities, and I was trusted by the higher-ups. When I decided to quit my job after getting married, they tried to keep me on many times. This time, having decided to divorce while in hospital, I was also considering returning to work. When I mentioned this to my boss, he immediately agreed to take me back. He even took care of the arrangements for company housing, so it was decided that I would return to work and move into the dormitory next month. I'm ready now. I can get away from my husband at any time. Later, when I returned home from the hospital, I found the completed divorce papers on the desk. I signed them and immediately submitted them to the courthouse. I hurried back home and packed up my essentials. Then, I left the house before my ex-husband returned. A few hours later, while I was taking a breather in a budget hotel, my phone vibrated with a call from Kenny. Reluctantly answering the persistent phone calls, he yelled at me.
Hey, did you get discharged from the hospital today?
Yes, so what? I responded.
What do you mean, so what? You didn't leave the divorce papers, so you went home, didn't you? Why didn't you wait for me to come back?
You already know the answer. There's no reason to live together in the same house when we're strangers now, is there?
Huh? Strangers? What are you talking about? You threw away the divorce papers, didn't you?
Threw them away?
You got scared when you realized I was serious about the divorce papers and threw them away, right?
It seems like Kenny is convinced that there's no way I could go through with the divorce. As proof, he is convinced that I threw away the divorce papers and speaks as if I have no intention of divorcing at all. Responding to him, who didn't seem to understand the situation, I replied sarcastically, Listen, you seem to be misunderstanding something, but I never threw away the divorce papers.
Huh? Then where are they?
I've submitted them. To the city hall.
What kind of joke is...
It's not a joke. It's already been accepted, and you and I are now strangers. We'll never have to deal with each other again. At that explanation, he raised his voice.
Don't mess with me.
Whether he couldn't believe what I said or not, he started blaming me again.
You! There's no way you can divorce. You who have no family? No job?
I certainly have no family, but I do have a job now.
Huh? You're a housewife.
That was true until now. I contacted my boss while in the hospital, and they agreed to hire me back.
That's not something you can do so easily.
It's possible. They even told me they want me back.
There's no way.
You probably don't know, but I'm going to resume work and live in the company's dormitory from next month. Then over the phone, Kenny let out a painful voice.
Wait a minute. This must be a joke, right? I wasn't serious about the divorce.
I don't care. I accepted the divorce because it was what you wanted. There's no problem with that, right?
But that's a problem. How am I supposed to live without you?
As soon as he understood it was a divorce, my ex-husband began to cling without learning his lesson. Disgusted by his attitude, I couldn't help but raise my voice. Huh? I don't care about your life. You're an adult. Figure it out on your own. I was your failed wife, right? So you shouldn't have any problems without me.
That's not true. Wait, I apologize. Please forgive me.
Shut up. I don't love you one bit anymore. I will never forget how you treated me like a slave. Don't ever appear in front of me again. Reflect on your actions and live alone for the rest of your life. After hanging up the phone unilaterally, I blocked his number. I made sure we would never have to interact again. That being said, my new job is at his workplace. The news of our divorce spread through the office. Because he badmouthed me at work, he seems to be looked at as getting what he deserves. He started to feel out of place at work and began taking unauthorized absences. As a result, Kenny was fired for misconduct. Thanks to this, all connections with him were completely cut off. He ended up in debt due to the alimony I demanded after the divorce. Losing his job and even incurring debt, I don't know what he's doing or where. The one thing I'm sure of is that he isn't living a wealthy life. His unhappiness is my only consolation after the torment I have suffered. From now on, I will work for myself and live for myself. I will regain the freedom that I lost during our marriage.
Sorry, Darcy. I'm really sorry. I can't believe this. They're not my family anymore.
The moment I saw my usually stoic husband shed tears, I made up my mind. We paid off $300,000 in debt, revitalized a struggling restaurant in the countryside, and even built a multi-generational home for my ailing mother-in-law. And they want to kick us out and give it all to my brother-in-law? No way. I won't let them get away with this. I won't hold back anymore. They're going to regret it. I grabbed my phone with trembling hands. Our revenge against those who trampled on us had begun. My name is Darcy. I'm 30 years old and work for a management consulting firm in the city. My husband Kibai, also 30, is a sous chef at a popular restaurant. He doesn't talk much, but he's incredibly kind, hardworking, and sincere. Today, we're having dinner at home with our mutual friend Stephanie. What? You guys are moving back to your hometown? Stephanie was shocked as she sipped her wine. Yeah, Kibai's dad is getting worse and we have decided to take over his family's restaurant.
I feel bad for Darcy having to quit her job, but that restaurant is my family legacy and my dad is the reason I became a chef.
I get it, but... Stephanie poked at the vibrant dishes Kibai had prepared with a displeased look. Stephanie and Kibai are from Morro Bay, a coastal town far away. I met Stephanie in college when she moved to the city for school. She comes from a wealthy family and is very bubbly, completely opposite to me, but somehow we clicked. She even introduced me to Kibai, saying you two are perfect for each other. But isn't it a waste, Darcy? You've been working so hard at a management consult at a big company, and Kibai, you're a chef at a renowned French restaurant. Don't you guys have dreams? Thanks for worrying, Stephanie, but nowadays, as long as you have a computer, you can work from anywhere. Most importantly, I want to support Kibai. Alright, lovebirds, now next time I'm in town, you better treat me to Kibai's cooking again.
Stephanie, thank you. I'll go grab some more wine.
As Kibai left the table, I whispered to Stephanie. Stephanie, thanks for your concern, but I'll make it work. I'm lucky to have good friends, of course. I have my worries about this new chapter, but I know we'll be alright. After saying our goodbyes to Stephanie, my husband and I moved to Morro Bay, unaware of the tough challenges that lay ahead of us. When we visited my father-in-law in the hospital, we were shocked to see how frail he had become.
Kibai, I've got terminal cancer. I don't have much time left.
Kibai's quiet father-in-law said that. I was prepared, but those words still weighed heavy on me. A man devoted to his work, his only hobby being collecting plates. A kind father who adored Kibai very much.
Dad, don't worry. We'll be okay.
Yes, father-in-law, everything will be alright. Kibai comforted him by holding his hand.
You've got a good wife, Kibai.
Just as I felt a lump in my throat, a shrill voice filled the room. Hey! If you're here, say so. I've got something important to talk about. Both of you, come here. We turned around to see my mother-in-law. I knew she had high blood pressure, but yelling like that is just going to make it worse. My mother-in-law comes from a family that owns several plots of land locally and was raised lovingly by her grandparents. For that reason or another, she's quite self-centered, and it seems she's always had the upper hand over my father-in-law, who is an adopted son-in-law. Moreover, just because Kibai resembles my father-in-law and Hadley, Kibai's brother resembles my mother-in-law. She's favored Hadley since childhood and has been rough with Kibai. I have to be honest, I find my domineering and selfish mother-in-law hard to deal with.
It's about the business, or more like our finances,
mother-in-law started. Turns out the situation was even worse than we imagined. Mother-in-law owns the land where the restaurant is located and my in-laws lived above the restaurant. Originally, the family restaurant in the countryside had few rivals. Thanks to the locals who loved my father-in-law's cooking, the place barely managed to survive. Now, it's almost earning nothing since father-in-law, who was the only chef, has been frequently unwell. On top of that, my mother-in-law owns a 45-year-old apartment next door. It's now infested with termites and has to be torn down. The costs for demolition and tenant relocation have accumulated, leaving us with a $300,000 debt.
Mom, why'd you let it get to this point? Just sell the restaurant and the land.
What are you talking about? This land has been in our family for generations. We can't just sell it. People need this restaurant. Your dad would be devastated. You don't get it because all you know is cooking. Do something. I'm getting old.
Kibai, I'll help too. Let's pull through this. So Kibai and I focused on paying off the debt, reviving the restaurant. I had $350,000 inherited from my wealthy father who passed away 2 years ago. When I suggested using it for repayment, Kibai repeatedly thanked me. I had wanted to use the money for other dreams, but now isn't the time to be choosy. Fortunately, Kibai is quite skilled in the kitchen.
Kibai's food is just as good as Dad's,
said the local customers who started coming back. I used my background in business consulting to improve the parking, decor, and online presence. With a new tourist spot opening nearby, business started booming in a few months. Then father-in-law, who had been ill, finally passed away. We were the only ones present at his side.
Kibai, the restaurant, your mom.
These broken words were father-in-law's last.
It's okay, Dad. Leave it to us.
We both tearfully said goodbye to father-in-law. During the funeral, mother-in-law looked visibly worn out. Glued to her side were my brother-in-law Hadley and his wife Lila. Since mother-in-law wasn't doing anything, we had to arrange and pay for the entire funeral.
That's quite the work ethic you got there, Darcy. Nice to see a career woman turned restaurant owner.
A drunk Hadley started to cause trouble. Kibai had worked hard to pay for his culinary school while being abandoned by mother-in-law with almost no money. Hadley, on the other hand, was pampered and went to a private college. He now works in sales in the neighboring town with a pretty wife. Hadley graduated from the same business school as me, but let's be real, my college was of a higher caliber. Maybe that's his chip on the shoulder, always throwing shade behind my back and making fun of Kibai. Of course, my mother-in-law never told Hadley about our debts, so he's clueless about the hell we went through. I was irritated but chose to ignore it. Then, a scream from Lila. I rushed over to find my mother-in-law, still in her funeral attire, convulsing and collapsed. She was pale and even foaming at the mouth. Kibai, Hadley, and I all scrambled to call an ambulance. Turns out she had suffered a stroke. She was already hypertensive, and the shock of my father-in-law's death and lack of sleep probably contributed. She survived, and her speech was okay, but she was left paralyzed and now needed constant care. 2 months after my father-in-law's death, she called us in to talk.
I have repaid the debt and the business is going well. Why not build a duplex on that vacant lot where the apartment used to be? I can't live upstairs anymore. Feel free to use your father's insurance money.
I was stunned by her audacity but realized she couldn't live upstairs anymore in the shop. We were renting an apartment nearby, but that wasn't free either. We could expand the business by renovating her space upstairs. The last words of my father-in-law crossed my mind. Please take care of the shop and your mother-in-law. That was probably his wish. I wanted to honor those words, even if it meant dealing with my challenging mother-in-law. So we bit the bullet and decided to build a duplex. It ended up costing us almost all of our savings, which we had set aside for our dream.
Our dream is over. I'm really sorry.
Kibai looked genuinely sorry, and I realized just how much I truly love him. We're doing well with the restaurant, and we can always save up money again. Besides, I'm excited about our new home. Let's try to stay positive. Holding back my emotions, I did my best to offer those words of encouragement. We decided to go with a trendy construction company that Hadley connected with through his business networks for our new home. We could have preferred a reputable local company, but we were overruled by Hadley and my mother-in-law. We were busy running the recently reopened shop, so we just gave them our living space requirements and left it at that. The duplex was completed. It was certainly stylish, and the first floor was accessible. But the second floor also featured a state-of-the-art kitchen for Kibai. We gathered in the newly completed home along with Hadley and his wife to celebrate. That's when my mother-in-law, now in a wheelchair, spoke up.
I have something to tell you.
I had a bad feeling about this. This doesn't bode well.
I want to give the restaurant to Hadley. And since Hadley and their team have agreed to take care of things, they'll be the ones living in this house. You all can go back to Los Angeles now.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We had paid off $300,000 in debt with the inheritance I received. Kibai had worked hard to rebuild the business, turning it into a well-liked shop with great online reviews. We even built a 2-family home to care for my ailing mother-in-law, and now they want to kick us out and give it all to Hadley?
Wow, this place turned out nice. Don't worry, Mom and the shop are in good hands.
Hadley smirked obnoxiously.
I can't wait to cook in this fabulous kitchen.
Lila chirped, clearly excited.
That must be about the kitchen for Kibai. What's up with these people? This is ridiculous. Since that's the case, don't move in here. Oh, take these dishes your father collected. They don't fit in this house.
Hadley carried out an old box full of dishes that my father-in-law had collected. I felt dizzy.
Well, it's settled then. Time to leave, don't you think?
My mother-in-law spoke coldly. I held back my anger, grabbed my husband's arm, and stood up. As we turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of their smirking faces, filling me with nausea.
I'm sorry, Darcy, I really am. They're not my family anymore.
On the way home, my usually stoic husband broke down. It was the last straw. Let them have the shop and the house. But I won't stand for it anymore. I have had enough. They are going to regret this, I promise. I took out my phone, trembling.
Hello, it's Stephanie.
Stephanie. Something's come up. We're doing it. After I explained, Stephanie simply said,
Understood. You both are on board, right? Let's do it.
A few months later, we were at the grand opening of a restaurant cafe located just a 10-minute drive from our Morro Bay family home, as the main chef and the business owners. Turns out, Stephanie's family owns land in Morro Bay and they're entrepreneurs. They initially wanted to start a restaurant around here and had planned to entrust us with running it. However, Stephanie had postponed the plans, not wanting to interfere with Kibai's family business. That was the whisper during the farewell party. Our dream of running our own restaurant became a reality thanks to the financial backing from Stephanie's family. Thanks to Kibai's culinary skills and my marketing, we have already garnered attention, even getting featured in magazines before opening. As we were chatting with Stephanie, champagne glasses in hand, Hadley and mother-in-law barged into the party yelling, "What's the meaning of this?"
Why are you even here? You're supposed to be out of the picture.
Kibai says coldly.
You are missing the point. If they build a restaurant here, our business is going to suffer.
Mother-in-law shouts, "The downfall of your business is your own fault, isn't it?" Kibai left, and the quality went downhill. You hired mediocre chefs, so even the locals stopped coming. And let's not forget your online reviews are terrible, mostly because of bad customer service. I calmly retorted. Hadley, who always looked down on us, was so angry his face turned red.
Damn you, then pay for that house.
Kibai retorted,
We built that house in the first place, which turns out to be unlivable.
Turns out that duplex was a disaster, riddled with leaks and structural issues. Hadley's contractor friend took off, leaving them in a bind.
We told you to go with a reputable local contractor, didn't we? You insisted on using your contract. It's not our problem.
Kibai and I fired back. And didn't I hear that Lila left? It's impossible to run a failing restaurant and take care of mother-in-law.
This woman?
Hadley lunged at me. With perfect timing, a crisp pop sound rings out and champagne sprays all over Hadley. Hadley looks stunned while mother-in-law opens her mouth in shock. Stephanie, holding the champagne bottle, says with a smile,
You guys brought this upon yourselves. You underestimate two capable people who are dear friends of mine, but thanks to you, we are a huge success. Now leave. We're celebrating here.
Drenched, Hadley and mother-in-law, their faces flushed, retreated. We apologized to our guests for the commotion. Though we kept bowing our heads, our hearts were full of joy. A year went by. Mother-in-law and Hadley had to close their restaurant due to poor management. Living in a rundown apartment, it seems Hadley has been juggling part-time work with caring for mother-in-law. One of our regular customers who's been frequenting our restaurant filled us in on their situation. They used to call us up until about 6 months ago, but we're not engaging with them anymore. Our restaurant cafe is now booming. Customers are flocking to try Kibai's dishes and sweets, and Stephanie couldn't be happier. I help run the business while also working as a business consultant in Morro Bay. Oh, one more thing. While organizing the dishes that father-in-law had left behind, we found his will. It read,
Kibai, I'm sorry for everything. Don't worry about the shop or your mother. Just run away and be happy with Darcy. Also, these antiques are for you. Get them appraised.
What father-in-law wanted to say was exactly this. He didn't want us to take over the business or mother-in-law. He wanted us to be free. Knowing father-in-law's true feelings brought tears to our eyes. We got the antiques appraised and found out they're worth far more than what had been spent on mother-in-law all these years. For now, we're not selling them. We think of father-in-law and say a prayer every day. Calm and happy days have returned to us.
What's going on here? I had been away for about 2 months for my childbirth, and our house was an absolute mess when I returned. As I exclaimed in shock, Alfred scoffed at me. Work for the time you took off! If you have a problem, let's get divorced! Haha! As I stood speechless, Alfred wore a smug expression. Soon, he dramatically displayed the divorce papers he was holding. I'm off for happy hour now, so you better clean this up. Without even thinking of holding our baby, Alfred walked out. A volcanic rage boiled within me towards him. I will never forgive him. Who needs a husband like this? Not me. My name is Samantha. At 37, I married Alfred, who's a year younger than me, and got pregnant 2 years later. We both worked at the same company, but my morning sickness was so bad I had to frequently take time off. That's when Alfred started acting weird. Both of us had lived alone for a long time, so we were both capable of doing household chores. We didn't have any specific division of labor, and managed our lives quite well. However, since I started taking time off, Alfred became visibly grumpy and began to demand I do chores, even when I was bedridden with morning sickness. Why isn't dinner ready? Why haven't you folded the laundry? And you're not even working! On top of dealing with nausea and fatigue, I now had to deal with Alfred's verbal abuse. He never used to be like this. Why? You taking time off for morning sickness is making things awkward for me at work. I've never heard of anyone doing that. Remember Mabel, who just came back from maternity leave? Apparently, she never had any trouble with morning sickness. But even hearing that, it's not like I wanted to take time off. Morning sickness affects everyone differently. Some have it for their first child, but not the second. It varies from one pregnancy to the next. I feel bad I can't cook or do laundry right now, but it's not like I'm slacking off. Please understand that. I managed to say, lifting my heavy body, but Alfred just glared at me. Must be nice being the pregnant lady and getting away with it. At least you could have made some rice. That's not too much to ask. His words pierced my heart. I couldn't stand the smell of cooking rice since my morning sickness began. It would make me feel nauseous. I had already explained this to Alfred, and still, I couldn't come to terms with how he changed so suddenly. Right now, I'm involved in a major project at work. I don't want to take time off if I can avoid it. I try to get some work done at home, but the nausea and fatigue get in the way. I'm grateful for our baby, but it's tough managing work and daily life. Experiencing pregnancy for the first time, nearing 40, was physically and emotionally draining. I just wanted Alfred to understand and help with chores, but he acted the exact opposite of what I hoped for. It might be true that other women at work don't take time off during their pregnancy, but I wish he'd listen to me, his wife, first. Once my morning sickness subsides, we can return to how we used to be. I decided to focus on that hope, but that hope was shattered. One day, Alfred said, I talked to Nolan the other day. He's never lifted a finger at home. Makes me realize how great a husband I've been. It's always been about you, Samantha. You need to grow up now that you're becoming a mom. Nolan is the husband of our colleague, Mabel. They're the poster couple at work. I've heard numerous stories about how they became a couple and their ups and downs. They're well regarded and trusted. And Nolan never doing chores? I'd love to hear the truth someday. Yet Alfred kept comparing himself to Nolan, piling chores on me. Will I ever have a good relationship with Alfred once our child is born? I spent my days tossed by these emotions. As my due date approached, I decided to give birth at a clinic near my parents' house. A few weeks after moving to my parents, I gave birth to a beautiful girl. Seeing our baby, all the pain and fear disappeared. Alfred changed back to being a caring husband and a loving father. He would feed the baby, change her diapers. While serving tea, Mom praised him. "Thank you, Alfred, for coming even on weekdays. Samantha, show some gratitude." Watching Alfred care for our child, Mom was very impressed. Though I had mixed feelings, I had to admit he was stepping up. Maybe holding our child changed Alfred. I thanked him. "Thank you, Alfred. I know you're tired from work. Don't overdo it, okay?" He smiled and replied, "She's our child. It's natural for me to care for her. You rest up, Samantha." He really is back to his old self. A wave of happiness washed over me, and I was looking forward to our life together. After a month-long checkup at the clinic, we planned to return to our apartment with our daughter the next day. Mom looked a bit sad and said, "You could have stayed a bit longer." But Alfred had repeatedly asked me to come home early. He probably couldn't wait to start our life together as a family. Excited, I opened the door to our apartment. But what I found was beyond belief. Clothes were strewn everywhere in the living room. Dishes were piled up in the sink. And the brand new baby crib was still in its box. What is this? I cried out in shock. Alfred appeared, laughing mockingly. "Finally, you're back. Do you know how hard it was without you? Make up for your absence and get to work. That's why I wanted you back early. If you have a problem, let's divorce. Ha!" He spread out the divorce papers right in front of me, making sure I could see them clearly. Alfred's section was already filled out. I couldn't believe that my own husband could be like this. I was left speechless. I had thought he's changed. Our daughter has transformed him. How wrong I was. Without uttering a word, Alfred headed for the door. "I'm off for happy hour. If you don't want a divorce, better clean up." Leaving with a condescending tone, Alfred walked out. He didn't even try to hold our daughter, not even giving her a fleeting glance. At that moment, everything became clear to me. His behavior at my parents' house had been an act to get me to come home sooner. I had hoped that one day Alfred would return to being his old self. I believed that as I went through childbirth, but I can't anymore. Holding back the overwhelming anger, I made a decision. I will never forgive that man. Divorce? Bring it on. I'll be the one to leave him. Once I made up my mind, I acted swiftly. I signed the divorce papers he handed me and immediately submitted them to the city office. After they were successfully processed, I packed my belongings and got into the car. "I'm coming back," I texted Mom as I headed home. "Samantha, what happened?" Mom was worried as I arrived. I told her everything, the history, and how Alfred treated me after coming home. She was in disbelief. Alfred did that?" Seeing her shocked, my heart ached. She had only seen the good in Alfred. Can't blame her. I was never good with relationships, and at 30, I still had no partner. They probably worried if I'd ever marry. They were overjoyed when I introduced Alfred. So I never told them about our marital issues. I had tried so hard to put their minds at ease, not wanting to burden them with more worries. But right now, I couldn't concern myself with what my parents thought. I had reached my breaking point. "I'm sorry, Mom, but I can't raise our child with a man like that. I've already filed the divorce papers." "What? So suddenly? Don't you think it's too soon? Maybe you should think it over after calming down?" Upon hearing the word divorce, Mom was visibly shaken. She was strongly opposed to the idea, but my determination remained steadfast. I didn't want to upset Mom, but I needed her to understand my decision. Then my typically quiet dad spoke up, looking stern. Listen, Stella, Samantha isn't a child anymore. She's a grown woman and a mother. If she's made up her mind, we should support her decision. I knew it couldn't have been easy for him. The deep furrows in his brow said it all. But he chose to respect my decision, and gratitude welled up in me. Hearing Dad's words, Mom went silent for a bit. After an awkward pause, she nodded. All right, accepting my choice. Late that night, as I was awakened by my daughter's cries, my phone buzzed. Alfred's name lit up the screen. Ignoring his call, I changed my daughter's diaper and began nursing her. After putting her to bed, I checked my phone again. It was flooded with missed calls and texts from him. Where are you? Not cleaning again? Slacking off, huh? I'll teach you a lesson. Answer me. If you don't come back now, we're seriously getting a divorce. Despite his wife suddenly leaving, his condescending attitude persisted. Reading his messages, my disdain for Alfred grew even stronger. I've already submitted the divorce papers. I sent just that text and nothing more. The next morning, more calls came in, but I didn't answer. If I had, I was sure he'd just hurl insults at me. The texts he sent were, as expected, filled with harsh words directed at me. A week later, the tone of Alfred's messages changed. Can we talk? Please respond. I know I messed up. His once fierce words now seemed deflated. No doubt something happened at work. Even though I was on parental leave, I had informed the company just a few days ago about my divorce. It seems my hunch was right. Among the texts from him, there was a message from Nolan. I'm sorry, my messages may have led Alfred astray, especially during such a challenging time for you. I learned from a call with Mabel what had transpired. Apparently, when word of our divorce got out at the company, Alfred tried to paint me as the villain. It's my lazy wife who's at fault, right, Nolan? You've never helped with chores at home, right? It's wrong for men to do housework. Alfred had hoped to rally Nolan to his side with those comments. However, Nolan responded with clear disgust, reprimanding Alfred. I don't believe housework is just a woman's job. Couples should cooperate. That's why I never said I helped. Doesn't mean I don't do it. Don't twist my words to fit your narrative. Alfred, who had been so sure of himself, stood stunned upon hearing the truth. Other colleagues were present, and now rumors about Alfred's behavior spread rapidly. Unable to handle the mounting pressure, he likely reached out to me for support. But it wasn't about Nolan. Alfred had changed, and not for the better. He demanded that I do housework even when I was weakened from morning sickness, made me clean, and do laundry when I couldn't move freely due to my growing belly, and commanded me to clean our messy home right after I came back from childbirth. No matter how much he apologized now, my feelings would not waver. I decided to completely ignore him, but Alfred wouldn't give up. One weekend morning, he showed up at my parents' home. When I opened the door, he began apologizing profusely. I'm sorry. It was my fault. Please, give us another chance. Seeing him so desperately apologize, I was taken aback. This was the man who had looked down on me for nearly a year. When I remained silent, Alfred continued. Nolan corrected me. It's not that he never helps with housework, but he sees it as a given, not something he helps with. I misunderstood and took it out on you, Samantha. But from now on, I promise I'll change. I'll do my part in housework and child rearing. Let's try again. You're the liar here. I immediately pointed it out, and Alfred blurted out, What? In a dumbfounded tone. I was deeply exasperated by my poor judgment in choosing him as a partner. There's no way I could ever reconcile with such a man. I glared at Alfred and sternly said, You know, I got a message from Nolan and Mabel, so I've known from the start that you misunderstood what Nolan said. But the thing is, you conveniently interpreted it to push all the household chores onto me. That's all on you, isn't it? Can you not act like Nolan misled you? You're just too selfish. At my words, Alfred looked shaken, but it seemed he still hadn't given up. I'm sorry. It was my fault for misinterpreting. Please. So, no matter what you say, my feelings won't change. Just leave now. I cut off Alfred's words and coldly sent him away. This time, Alfred clung to my arm in desperation. Please, hear me out. Things are tough at work now. Nolan's family looks down on me, and everyone else is cold. If we can mend our relationship, maybe they'll change their minds. I see. So that's what it is. This man, after all, is just that kind of guy. Only thinking of himself. A truly despicable man. You're always thinking about yourself. Grow up. Face the consequences of your actions. I forcefully shook off his grip. He collapsed to his knees, burying his face in his hands. In the end, my father had to escort him out. A year passed. My daughter started attending daycare, and my maternity leave ended. The idea of working with Alfred again made me uneasy. However, I wasn't willing to let go of what I'd built for his sake. When I returned, everyone welcomed me warmly. At that point, I came to a shocking realization. Turns out Alfred had left the company more than half a year ago. Apparently, he couldn't stand the looks he got and decided to leave. Later, he sought refuge at his parents' home, but his older brother's family was already living there, making things uncomfortable. Given his age, he struggled to find another job. Now he's responsible for all the household chores at his parents' house. As for me, I'm working hard to regain the skills I lost during maternity leave. With my parents' support, I'm managing both work and childcare. I'll continue to give my all every day for my daughter.
You're 35 and way too old. Let's get a divorce. If you round up, you're basically 40. I'm cutting ties with you as a parent. Just leave.
Could there be anyone else who gets yelled at like this by their husband and son? Especially on their birthday? It seems they no longer consider me as family. But this might be a blessing in disguise. I've been waiting for the perfect moment to get back at them. My name is Darcy, and I'm 34. I live with my 25-year-old husband, Sam, and our 19-year-old son. I gave birth to Jeff when I was just 16, a single mother. I worked hard to raise him and met my current husband in my late 20s. I'm truly grateful to Sam for accepting me and my child. Because of their close ages, my husband and son are more like buddies than father and son. Even before we got married, Jeff was attached to Sam, which was fine. But as time went on, the way they treated me started to change for the worse. One day, while I was cleaning, I found Jeff lying on the floor. "Hey Jeff, I'm about to vacuum. Can you move?"
What? Just do it when I'm not here.
What's with that attitude? Weren't you supposed to go for a part-time job interview today?
I felt lazy, so I skipped it.
What? We agreed you'd earn your own allowance. I just gave you $300 the other day.
If you're a parent, don't be stingy over $300.
Listen to this recording on my phone. You clearly said you'd earn your own money.
Shut up, old lady. Stop nagging.
When I played the recording, Jeff angrily lashed out. Lately, I've been recording their words because we often argue about who said what. Thankfully, I had this recording. After high school, Jeff neither got a job nor did anything productive. He just lazed around at home. He'd say he's going for a part-time job interview, but would either not show up or quit after a few days. Moreover, his attitude towards me worsened daily. A few years ago, Sam started calling me old, and Jeff picked up on it. While I was still in shock from Jeff's behavior, Sam came downstairs looking grumpy.
What's all this noise? You woke me up.
Sam, please say something to Jeff. He skipped his job interview again.
Oh, is that all? I'm trying to sleep in on my day off. Let me be.
What do you mean? Is that all?
You've been getting angry a lot lately. Is it menopause?
What? It's normal to get mad at a son who does nothing all day.
Whoa, scary. Women do get cranky with age. Watch out, Jeff.
Laughing at his dad's words, Jeff said,
Too funny.
How can they belittle their wife, their mother, to this extent?
What on earth did I ever do to you two? Seeing that I wouldn't fight back, my husband and son kept hurling insults at me. Their close bond made them team up and mock me. Lately, they'd intentionally avoid eating the meals I prepared or wouldn't come home until late at night. Sometimes my husband would even come home smelling of perfume. Can we really call this a family? I've started to wonder. Yet I remember the pain of giving birth to my son and the man who accepted us and married me. So I tried to keep my reactions neutral. A few months later, I felt a bit brighter that day because it was my 35th birthday. They might have forgotten, but I didn't care. I decided to treat myself and bought a cake and some appetizers after work. When I got home, surprisingly, both my husband and son were there to greet me. Why are you two here?
What are you talking about, Darcy? It's your birthday, right? Yeah, it's your birthday, so we came home early.
You remembered my birthday?
Of course, we're a family, aren't we? Just sit down, Mom. We've got everything ready.
I'm so happy. Thank you both. Honestly, I was deeply touched. For years, they didn't even remember my birthday. So knowing they cared enough to celebrate was heartwarming. 30 minutes later, my husband and son set the appetizers on plates and put candles on the cake. With big smiles, they said,
Happy birthday, Darcy. Happy birthday, Mom.
Thank you both so much.
We know it's been tough. Thanks for everything.
Thanks, Mom. Wait, thanks? Why past tense? I feel like this is a strange way to celebrate. Ignoring my confusion, Jeff urged,
Come on, blow out the candles.
After I did, they both stood up clapping.
Done. Good job. Man, that took forever. Finally free from the old lady.
Wait, what's going on?
Jeff, she still doesn't get it. Come on, Dad, you tell her. I can't stop laughing.
What did I do? I just blew out the candles. They then dropped a bombshell.
We're done with you. You served your purpose. Finally, we're free. Oh, that's right.
What are you talking about?
Don't you get it? We don't need a 35-year-old. We're divorcing. Round it up, and you're 40. We're cutting ties. Just leave.
My husband pulled out divorce papers from his bag and slammed them in front of me.
Here, I prepared everything.
Sam, are you serious about this divorce?
Obviously. Who'd want to be with an old lady like you?
Old lady?
Isn't it obvious? You're 10 years older than me. I don't want to take care of someone like that.
But when we got married, I asked you. I have a child and I'm 10 years older. Are you sure about this?
You were still in your late 20s then, and you were pretty.
But everyone ages. He sighed and mocked.
You think you're so special. Be grateful we even stayed with you past 30.
Jeff added.
Exactly. Did you ever think we needed you?
But I'm your real mother.
Gross. Stop acting all high and mighty. You had me at 16. You're just an old crazy person. We really don't care about you. Just leave.
In that moment, the fragile love I felt for my family shattered. So I'm no longer a part of this family. They've prepared the divorce papers, and even my son has rejected me. Then there's no need for me to endure this any longer. With determination, I signed the divorce papers in front of my husband and son. Is this what you wanted?
Wow, you made up your mind quickly. Giving up on us, huh? Feeling sorry for yourself now that we've dumped you?
I looked down at them and said, Given up? Dumped? No, I'm the one leaving you.
What are you talking about? Stop playing dumb, Jeff. She's just being bitter.
Enjoy your carefree life while you can. It won't last long. I grabbed the signed divorce papers and packed my things to leave. That night, I stayed in a cheap hotel, and the next day, I visited a lawyer's office I had in mind. Of course, to get back at my husband and son. A few weeks later, as expected, my husband called. Hello?
Darcy, what the hell is this?
What are you talking about?
Don't play dumb. I just got this certified mail.
If you received it, then just follow the instructions.
You've got to be kidding. Why am I being asked to pay compensation for the divorce?
Why? Because you cheated. Yes, Sam had been having an affair. I had suspicions when he started coming home smelling of perfume. I even suspected he introduced his mistress to our son. I had hired a detective to gather evidence and was prepared for a divorce.
You knew about her?
Of course, I found out by accident.
Why didn't you say anything? Now you're demanding compensation after the divorce.
Why? Because I thought of you as family. I was devastated when I found out about the affair. I even thought of divorcing you right away, but I endured it because we were family. Tears welled up as I spoke my truth. I went to see a lawyer, vowing that I would no longer have any regrets about my husband, and I would sever ties with my son. I had hoped he might apologize and admit his mistakes, but that hope was shattered with this call.
So you still have feelings for me? I'll forget about the divorce if you drop the compensation claim.
You're serious? After all the insults in the affair? Not even an apology?
Why should I apologize?
Excuse me?
It's your fault for getting old. I did nothing wrong. It's all on you for aging.
Fine, I'll see you soon with my lawyer. I hung up and headed to my former home with my lawyer. Upon arrival, they greeted me with smug smiles.
Long time no see. How does it feel to be kicked out by your loving husband and son? You've aged a bit since we last saw you. Can't believe you're my mom. Dad's girlfriend is way hotter.
Same old with you two.
What do you want? If it's about the compensation, we're not paying. Get out. Just seeing you annoys me.
All right then. Please proceed, lawyer. Prompted, my lawyer began to explain on my behalf.
All right, Sam. We're demanding $20,000 in compensation for the divorce due to your affair. I already told you, I'm not paying. Additionally, we're asking for $10,000 for the emotional distress Darcy suffered from your verbal abuse. That's a total of $30,000. Wait, $30,000?
My husband was visibly shaken by the amount. Sweating, he appealed to the lawyer.
Wait a minute, this is ridiculous. I never verbally abused her. We have evidence, you know. What? Darcy has been recording your conversations just in case.
I initially did it to avoid he said, she said arguments. I never thought it would come to this. Nodding in agreement, the lawyer continued.
You have a very smart wife. She's gathered so much evidence, even unintentionally. This can't be. Just so you know, all the evidence Darcy has is valid. We've backed it up, so trying to take it from her and erase it won't work. That's all from me. Darcy, shall we go?
As we were about to leave, my husband shouted.
Wait.
What?
Please, Darcy, I can't afford $30,000.
That's not my problem. You brought this on yourself, remember? You're the one who handed me the divorce papers.
But I never thought it would come to this.
I exploded in anger. What are you saying now? After all the times you insulted me and called me old, now you want to back out of the divorce? You're too convenient.
But that was just a joke.
I have no intention of getting back with you. I'll make sure you pay the compensation for the divorce. I feel so relieved to be divorcing you. Go to hell, jerk. My husband's face turned pale, and he was speechless. Seeing this, my son hesitantly approached me.
Mom, wait,
What?
Well, if Dad pays the compensation, he won't have any money left.
What's your point?
You'll still give me an allowance, right? Like the usual $500 a month?
I couldn't help but laugh at his audacity.
What's so funny?
Why would I give you an allowance?
But you're my mom, and I'm still a minor.
Oh, didn't you know?
What?
The law changed in April. Adulthood starts at 18 now. So, you know what that means?
That means...
You're 19, an adult. I have no obligation to support you. Get a job, you lazy bum.
Mom!
I'm not your mom anymore. Just like you abandoned me, I'm abandoning you.
I won't help you no matter what. You and your low-life father can sink together. Wait, Mom! Ignoring my ex-son's cries, I left with my lawyer. Soon after our divorce was finalized, my ex-husband apparently went into debt to pay me the compensation. He quickly remarried his mistress, but it turned out she had borrowed thousands from loan sharks under his name. She's now missing, and he's hiding from the debt collectors. Instead, he was arrested for black money and is now living in hiding. As for my ex-son, he got a part-time job at a grocery store, but was fired quickly due to his laziness. He's now often seen spending nights in parks. It's ironic how similar they are, even though they're not blood-related. Some might say it's irresponsible to abandon one's child, but I don't regret my decision. I have feelings too. I'm not a robot. I refuse to dedicate my life to such people after enduring so much. From now on, I'll cherish myself and live a life I can be proud of.